Story 1. Stephen. What? He is coming out of the faucet. Story 2. I talk in my sleep. My wife has told me many stories. The best one, hands down, is from when she was pregnant. She woke with severe heartburn and nausea and tried to wake me to say she wasn't feeling well. She says I actually said, "You know those feelings you are feeling? Just turn them off," and fell back asleep. I'm really lucky my wife knows I talk in my sleep and loves me. She doesn't hold what I say against me. She just teases me a lot. Story 3. My significant other told me one morning that he woke in the middle of the night with my face inches from my finger in his ear, and I was whispering that I just needed to get in. Story 4. She leaned in until she was about 2 inches from my face and said, "Two people sleep in a dorm room." Then she burst out laughing. It was our first night together. Story 5. My boyfriend once cupped my crotch in his sleep and said, 2 out of 5 stars. Edit. Whoops. I clearly got carried away reading the other comments and forgot it was supposed to be something creepy. Regardless, thanks for the gold. Glad you all get a kick out of my crotch's low rating. And yes, I am still with him. Story 6. I went to bed, lay down, and was about to turn off the bedside lamp. He turned over, eyes still shut, obviously still asleep. "Don't turn the light off." I was confused. "Why?" "They need to see." I freaked the fuck out, wondering who was in our bedroom that I hadn't noticed. Who needs to see? The bugs. Why do the bugs need to see? To read. This happened months ago and I still haven't let it go. Story 7. He sat straight up in bed, which I had thought only happened in movies. He shouted, "They're coming for my skin," chuckled, and fell back asleep. Story 8. My mother still brings this story up. It happened during my 8th grade year of school. One morning she walked in to see if I was awake and asked, "Are you awake?" While still asleep I apparently said, "Fuck. I don't know. Is it meteors?" Story 9. Not my significant other but a roommate woke up the whole house shouting, "Where's the head?" Story 10. I woke up to go to the bathroom one night. As I moved to get up, my boyfriend said not to go out there. Thinking he was awake and joking, I asked why. He sat upright, eyes wide open, said she was out there, then flopped back down and fell asleep. I held it for the rest of the night. Story 11. At first he mumbled something I could not understand. I turned to face him and asked what he had said. He responded in his sleep, "Don't worry about it," and then laughed in a villainous way I had never heard him use while awake. It honestly crept me out. Story 12. Be quiet. She'll hear us, the other person said. I asked, "Who?" "The woman who lives here," the other person replied. "She's in the hallway." Story 13. I talk in my sleep, and my girlfriend told me this story after we woke up. I had evidently turned toward her, shook her with my face, and yelled, "They took my goddamn arms, Johnny." Then I slumped back over and went back to sleep. Edit. Holy shit. I never thought dramatic sleep me would ever do anything to warrant such a reaction. Thank you. Also, thank you very much to the strangers who gave gold and silver. Story 14. My significant other told me that I said, "Give her a lobotomy right through the temple." I was the one who said it, not my significant other. Story 15. Put it away now. This was only our 4th night sleeping together, and I didn't even have anything out. Story 16. I'm not sure what is more terrifying than your significant other sitting upright and saying, "They are here," only to collapse back into a deep slumber. I did not expect this thread to blow up the way it did. Thank you. Story 17. My fiancé is very active while sleeping. He used to bother me, but now I'm used to it. One night, I asked her for her pillow while she was asleep. She said okay, then pulled it from under her head and tossed it at me. She slept the rest of the night without a pillow and was quite upset when she woke and I told her what she had done. Story 18. I talk in my sleep regularly. One instance comes to mind. My partner said she was going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. On her way back, I said, "It's following you," and went back to sleep. Story 19. I'm a sleep talker. The best thing anyone has ever told me was, No, none of them have heads. Story 20. Kill the writers. My brother once woke me up screaming a number in his sleep. None of us could understand the significance of this number until a rerun of Mythbusters came on. It was the length of track from when they raced toy cars versus real cars. Story 21. Not my significant other, but my roommate said this in his sleep at about 4 in the morning. Are you texting demons? Oddly high-pitched laugh. You're friends with demons. Story 22. My girlfriend woke me one night while she was still asleep. She asked me to pass the light-up picture frame. When I asked what she was talking about, she shouted, "Fine, I'll get it myself," and actually began walking around the room looking for something. It is not really creepy, but I do not often get a chance to tell the story. Story 23. In this thread are great plot ideas for a horror film. You all have possessed loved ones. Story 24. Not completely a talking in her sleep story, but when my partner is stressed, she has dreams about spiders crawling everywhere. One night I was reading and she was asleep. She suddenly sat up and stared at me. I asked her, "What's up?" My partner, "The spiders." I asked, "What spiders?" My partner, "There are spiders coming out of the poster." I said, "There are no spiders." She stared at the poster. My partner, "No, the spiders." I said, "Go back to sleep." She collapsed back onto her pillow and fell asleep. When she first sat up and stared at me, I felt like I was in a horror movie and already dead. Story 25. She started shaking me and yelling that the financial reports do not match. She is an accountant. Story 26. My girlfriend does this occasionally. One night she had a very bad nightmare and screamed at the top of her lungs into my face. I woke up with an adrenaline rush that is my closest guess to what cocaine feels like. I woke her by stroking her hair and whispering that it would be okay. She thanked me the next morning. Story 27. Not my significant other, but it is still kind of funny, although it was very scary at the time. When I was little, I had a nightmare and went to my parents' room to tell my mom and get a cuddle so I could go back to sleep. I knocked on the door and opened it very quietly so only my mom would wake, since my mom was a light sleeper and my dad a heavy one. I got in, and at that moment my dad jumped out of bed and shouted, "I do not want to see you here again." I fled up the stairs and cried. My mom followed me and told me she did not know what had happened either. My dad later said he did not remember it. But I do. Story 28. Well, at least I don't have Alzheimer's. She's acting like a bitch. Of course I stole her Valium. Story 29. My girlfriend, now my wife, and I were sleeping in my bed in college. Because I couldn't control the temperature in my room, which was kept at about 105 degrees despite a brutal winter. We always slept with the window open and the bedroom door cracked for circulation. I lived in a ground floor apartment of a brownstone in Boston. In the dead of night, she started smacking me. She whispered, "Babe, babe." I startled awake. "What?" She whispered, "There's someone standing in the doorway," and whimpered softly. Adrenaline started pumping. I prepared to fight the intruder and quickly scanned the room for something to use as a weapon. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I became fully awake and saw that no one was actually there. I said, "No, there isn't. You're dreaming." She laughed softly, and the next morning she had no recollection of the incident. I had to tell her how she almost made me crap my pants in the middle of the night. Story 30. I thought she was awake, but we were lying in bed last week. This is how it went. Girlfriend, "I'm going to soil myself." Me, "What?" "No, go to the bathroom." Girlfriend, "Ugh, I'm going to soil the bed." Me, "Why don't you go to the bathroom if you have to poop?" Girlfriend, "What? That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm trying to make these trees grow. Just be quiet." Then I realized she was asleep and started laughing hysterically, which made her angry. She didn't remember any of it the next morning. Story 31. Not so. My son came into my room while I was napping, and I said we needed to decapitate them and take them back to the lab. Story 32. Not so much creepy as odd. I overheard my wife accurately recite my social security number aloud while she was sleeping. The next morning she insisted I must have been imagining it, because she did not know my social security number. I did not believe her and made her swear on our marriage that she was not lying. She said that if someone pointed a gun at my head and threatened to pull the trigger unless she recited the number, she would tell me she loved me and that she would remember me fondly after I died. It was the oddest thing. Story 33. My fiancée is Chinese and didn't have the best upbringing there. It is common for her to yell random Chinese phrases in a distressed tone while she sleeps. It was absolutely terrifying the first few times I experienced it. Now I just cuddle with her a little harder when it happens. Story 34. My wife does not talk in her sleep, but I once woke up to find her sitting up, leaning over me, and staring at me in the style of Paranormal Activity. It was terrifying, and she has no recollection of it. Story 35. My brother, not my significant other. When we were little, we had rooms across the hall from each other, and I'm a terrible sleeper, so I was randomly awake one night. Walking back from the bathroom, I heard him shout at the top of his lungs, "Lana Llama, don't touch my pumpkin." It was February. Story 36. All of these begin with her shaking me awake. She says, "Shoo, they are on the roof." I ask, "Who?" She falls back asleep. She says, "Where is he going to sleep?" I ask, "Who?" She says, "The man who is here," and points. I say, "What?" She falls back asleep. She says, "I see it over there by the stairs." I am silently panicking. She falls back asleep. She says, "Do you see her?" I say, "Who?" She says, "The lady in the corner." I say, "There is nobody there." She says, "Her eyes." I say, "There is nobody there." She says, "I hope she goes away." She falls back asleep. Cannot sleep. She never remembers saying any of this. Story 37. I started keeping track of the stranger conversations we have had that she remembers nothing of. On November 25th, she woke up and, clear and loud, asked about fish sticks. I asked what she meant. She asked if I was making fish sticks. I said that I was. She said okay and went back to sleep. Story 38. I was rearranging my pillow nest in the middle of the night and he must have felt threatened. Whoa, no, please put those down. Some other delightful experiences. By fortuitous design, we sleep with our faces 1 centimeter apart. He barks loudly like an aggressive, ferocious dog. I wake up completely, have a mini heart attack, and scream. He whines softly like a chastised dog. He sits up suddenly in bed, laughing like a maniac. I say, "It's okay, go back to sleep." He does nothing. I start falling back asleep. He shouts, "No, you go back to sleep." I say, "Just lie down." He goes from a 90-degree angle to a 45-degree angle and his sleeping self pretends to be asleep, achieving true meta status. I say, "I know you're not lying down properly." He says, "Yes, I am." I say, "Okay, whatever." Story 39. I posted this in a similar thread months ago, but it's still relevant. Same house, same bedroom, different women, 5 years apart. First woman. We were asleep and she took a huge, deep breath that woke me. Then she said, "They are here now and want to speak to you. I'm going to let them use me." I woke her up violently, shouting, "What the fuck?" All she could tell me was that she had seen several shadowy people in her dream who said they had a message for me but needed her to talk to me. Second woman. We were asleep together and the same thing happened. She took a deep, long breath that woke me. But this time she screamed, "There are people in this room with us." I calmed her by assuring her we were alone. She never slept over again. I sold the house, laughing out loud. Story 40. It is touching her with its scaly hooves. Followed by, I cannot swim, but neither can the horses. Laughing out loud. I guess she was dreaming about lizard horses. Story 41. I had an ex-girlfriend whose first language was Welsh. When she spoke in her sleep, it sounded like she was speaking in tongues. Story 42. Soft, creepy laughter. Then suddenly it sits upright at a 90-degree angle and says, It's all part of the show. It then goes back to sleep. Story 43. I am a sleep talker. My ex-wife said I would sit up almost every night with my eyes open, tell her I love her, then lie back down and fall asleep. Story 44. I've mentioned this before, but my husband is out of control with his sleep talking. You almost can't call it sleep talking because you would swear this man knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't just talk. He gets out of bed and walks around the house as if fully aware. He could hold a full conversation with you. It takes a minute to realize whether he's awake or not. He's so sure of himself. Probably the scariest thing was one night when we were asleep. It had to be about 3 in the morning, and he bolted out of bed like I had never seen, waking me up and frantically yelling that we had to leave immediately and to follow him. I went into full panic mode and started trying to grab things and gather my dogs while asking him what was going on. He was so serious that I trusted there must be something wrong. Within a minute or so, I noticed that although he was frantic, he wasn't really doing anything, just kind of going in circles. At that point, it clicked that he wasn't really awake. I had been woken from a dead sleep too, so I kept saying his name and telling him it was okay. He snapped out of it and said, "Oh, sorry about that." I was definitely freaked out for a minute there, though. Thanks so much for the platinum. Story 45. My significant other is an anesthesiologist. He frequently dreams about work. Sometimes I would wake up to him sitting upright in bed, staring at me. When I spoke to him, he did not answer. In the morning, he would remember checking whether I was breathing or needed to be intubated. This happened quite often when he had just started working. One time he woke me up by saying, "I know. We have it somewhere around here, this huge wrought iron knockout." I never found out what it was. Story 46. My ex once asked, "Do you see them?" I replied, "Who?" She said, "The children." That was a definite no. Story 47. Can I have a bite of that burrito? Proud and very serious. Story 48. Not my significant other, but a friend's mother often talked in her sleep. Apparently she would pet her boyfriend's hair while telling him all the ways she could kill him and make it look like an accident. I told her about it in the morning. She laughed and said they were not bad ideas. Story 49. I am at the drop site. I start laughing. The Germans will never suspect it. Then boom. Story 50. Not my significant other, but my college roommate slept with his eyes half open and occasionally talked in his sleep. The one thing I remember him saying was, "No, Grandma. The Browns. They were from Ohio." Story 51. A buddy in high school, around 2A, sat up and said, "Angels, bring me the sun." Story 52. Significant other? Can you see it? In the corner? What? Significant other is snoring. Bitch. Story 53. My girlfriend at the time worked for the welfare department. One night I got up to use the bathroom. When I returned, she was sitting upright, sternly telling me that I had not correctly declared my income and assets. She had no recollection of it the next day. Story 54. Violently shakes me awake. Don't move. We are covered in bees. Stay very still. Turns over and falls asleep. Story 55. My wife occasionally has night terrors. One night she woke up screaming, thinking something was in the corner of our room. It really freaked me out because I woke to her trying to get through the wall, pulling her lamp out of the socket, and throwing everything off her nightstand. My dog and I looked at her, confused. The dog left the bedroom and slept in the guest room that night. Story 56. It will all be over soon, in a sing-song voice, followed by a childlike giggle from a full-grown man. Story 57. Not a significant other, but a friend from a school camp. My name is Mustard Constellation. Keeps me up to this very day. Story 58. On vacation in a king-sized bed, we actually have a queen. Her. I love you. Me. I love you too. Her. I love you, big old bed. Me. Big old bed loves you too. Her. Oh my God. Big old bed, you can talk. I do not know whether this is creepy or adorable. I suppose the idea of a talking bed could be creepy. Story 59. Significant other. Don't eat the fucking birds. They are not food. Me, what birds? Significant other, ha, tweet. Story 60. Evidence conclusively revealed that she was a Nazi, despite her earlier claims that she wanted the Holy Grail only for its historical value. Story 61. My boyfriend has post-traumatic stress disorder from his time in the Marines and from what he experienced overseas. The other night, I had my arm around his waist. He patted my hand and said that I would never make it out of there, that I was just another casualty, that I was going to die, and that luckily we were married because I had life insurance. We are not married. Story 62. Call Queen Elizabeth. The vampires are coming. Story 63. My ex used to talk in his sleep all the time. I would write down what he said or start talking to him and have whole conversations with him while he slept. In the morning, I would post them as Facebook status updates because I thought they were hilarious. The one that scared the shit out of me was when I was in the other room with my headphones on around 2 a.m. I was playing an online game with people and, out of nowhere, I heard my ex loudly and robotically emit a broken, repetitive laugh. It sounded like someone had broken his laugh. I walked in to see what was happening, but he was asleep again and silent. Edit to add. It was not a laugh from League of Legends, at least not that I know. He only ever played 3 video games total: Pokemon, World of Warcraft, and Borderlands. I was the gamer in the family, but I never touched League of Legends. Story 64. This did not involve my significant other. While I was on a camping trip with a group of friends, I was tired and went to sleep around midnight while they stayed up and talked in the outer tent. After about an hour, they unzipped the tent flap, which made a lot of noise. Without really waking, I sat bolt upright and said in a clear voice, "What did I say? Keep it quiet, fucking idiots." Then I lay down again. The next morning was pretty weird. They did not know I talked in my sleep. Story 65. I had a friend sit up, point at the wall, then lie back down and fall asleep. Story 66. He did not say anything. He made a noise, a prolonged howling that lasted up to 10 minutes and sounded like a wolf's howl. At least once he punched me repeatedly in his sleep. Yes, it was post-traumatic stress disorder, and yes, we broke up, mainly because he refused to get therapy and dissolved into alcoholism. Being punched while asleep was not acceptable either. Story 67. This is not about a significant other. I share a room with my brother, who has struggled with night terrors since he was a child. One night I woke up to him screaming as if he were being flayed alive. High-pitched, voice-cracking screams. Between them he kept saying, "It's touching me. Something is touching me," along with other garbled speech. It took about a minute for him to wake up. I was awake all night. Hearing him scream with that much terror was scarier than the words he was saying. When I first woke, I thought there was an intruder in our room. We are lucky the police were not called. Laughing out loud. Story 68. He kissed my forehead and then said in a creepy sing-song voice, "They're coming. The terrorists are coming. Don't worry though, they won't bang you." Story 69. Significant other. Fuck that. Me what? Significant other. That. Edit my first Reddit gold. Thanks. Story 70. My significant other used to speak German in his sleep, although less so over the years. Since I understand very little German, I would catch a few words here and there and ask him about them in the morning. It was usually words like run or kill and so on. He had the strangest dreams and nightmares. Story 71. Not creepy, but my boyfriend talks in his sleep all the time. The funniest time was when he woke me from a deep sleep to tell me about a gift he bought his dad. He started off clear, saying, "Did I tell you what I got my dad? It's a hat that hangs on the wall," then drifted into gibberish. When I asked, he repeated it the same way. I asked again, and he yelled, "Forget it. Okay." Then rolled over angrily. Story 72. I want to hurt you, then maybe you'll be quiet. Story 73. My husband woke up, or so I thought, wide-eyed some years after our wedding. He looked at me and behind me and began screaming like a child, covering his mouth while hyperventilating in the middle of the night. His face was twisted in pure terror, and I thought there was an axe murderer behind me. When I jumped up and switched sides to get behind him, he kept staring at me as if there were a demon or Slender Man behind me. I cried, "Jesus, Jeff, what is it?" He whispered in a quiet little boy voice, "Please do not talk. Please do not talk." I reached out in fear and he recoiled, saying, "Do not get any closer. Oh my God, please do not get any closer." I said, "I am your wife. Do not leave me alone. What is it?" He began making crying sounds without tears and said, "You are not my wife. My wife would not have teeth like that and her head would not be backwards." It was the freakiest night of my life. He later woke with no memory of the event while I locked myself in the bathroom and called my mother. Story 74. I am going to blatantly disobey the rules here and post the funniest thing. Also, obligatory. Not me, but a friend. I have 2 married friends. He was a roommate of mine in college and she was our neighbor. I still keep up with them. She told me that one time in the middle of the night she woke up and had the following exchange with her husband. Him, "Ah shit." Her, "What did you say?" Him, "Ah shit. Big old breasts." Story 75. They sat up at a 90-degree angle and said that violence causes and solves all problems. They lay back down and said nothing else. Story 76. Oh God. Help me. My girlfriend is a very deep sleeper, which means she does strange things when she is asleep. Thankfully, she usually does not talk much, but because her nightmares do not wake her like they do most people, she sometimes screams in her sleep. However, that does not begin to touch the creepiest thing she did while asleep. To set the scene, it was about 2 in the morning, and my girlfriend and I had spent a busy afternoon doing house chores, so she was very deeply asleep. All of a sudden she started twitching and grumbling, which meant she was having a nightmare, so I started trying to wake her. As I began to lean over, her eyes shot open and she suddenly sat bolt upright. She leaned over and said in a low whisper, "Next morning I need you to ask me if we did the laundry." I started to explain that we had already done the housework when she raised a finger to her lips and hushed me sharply. She leaned in closer and spoke in a whisper with an unsettling urgency. "No, listen, you have to be quiet. I need you to ask me if we did the dishes when we wake up." Confused but now sufficiently freaked out, I nodded to indicate agreement. She met my eyes, looking somewhere between angry and terrified, then said, "When you ask if I say we need to, it is not me anymore. Run." With that, she collapsed back onto her pillow and was asleep again in maybe 2 seconds. I, on the other hand, did not sleep that night. Story 77. According to my wife, I tried to send one of my male friends a dick pic in my sleep a couple of weeks ago. Story 78. My significant other has to deal with me sleep-talking and sometimes sleepwalking. One time I vaguely remember seeing many people sitting around my husband in the living room, all staring at the hallway I had walked out of. I asked him, "Who are all these people?" I have a few creepy incidents and a few funny ones. I have sleep-talked and sleepwalked my entire life. Story 79. This will probably get buried, but under the right circumstances, drunk, very tired, relaxed, or sick, my husband will make statements or even carry on full conversations. I mostly try to mess with him. This has resulted in a wide variety of funny moments, such as, "Husband, sleeping with his head on my thighs. I love being sleepy on your tummy." My nephew said, "You realize your head is on her legs, not her stomach." Husband, "I'll fucking kill you for that." Once he fell asleep on the bed while I was putting away my clothes from the wash. He said, "Okay, ma'am, I can take your order now." Me, what do you recommend?" Husband, slightly offended, "Well, ma'am, this is a pasta restaurant and it's all delicious. But the porcini is really good." Me, "Okay, I'll have that. Oh, by the way, you're really cute." Husband, thanks, but I'm married. What sauce would you like?" Me, "I'll have your marinara all over my body while I make sweet, sweet love to you." Husband, startled awake, "Oh, shit." Story 80. I shared a room with my brother growing up. He had issues with sleep-talking and sleepwalking. This went on for a few years before he grew out of it. Once he made it all the way into the middle of the street while yelling for my sister, who was sleeping in the next room. The scary episodes were fairly regular. He would not just sleepwalk. Sometimes he would sit up in bed and stare at you, eyes wide open, while still completely asleep. The stares were often accompanied by loud shouting of gibberish, and sometimes he would scream bloody murder, which would make my mother rush into the room to see if he was okay. I'll never forget the night I woke up feeling watched. Lo and behold, I looked over and there was my brother, just staring at me. He did not speak, just watched. When I tried to talk to him, he gave no response, then yelled gibberish and lay down in one motion. Felt like sharing a room with a possessed person. Story 81. My husband once sleepwalked into his cousin's room with a half-eaten ice cream sandwich, started shoving it into her mouth and said, you like the attention. It tastes like olives. He was about 29 at the time. He also once stood next to the bed holding a box of cereal, rocking it back and forth, bouncing it and shushing it like a baby. That was before we had kids. Story 82. I'm a sleep talker. I had a dream that my house was being broken into and the intruders disarmed me. So I did the only natural thing a woman would do in that situation. I punched the intruder in the groin hard. Except it wasn't an intruder. It was my husband. He bolted up and yelled, "What the expletive?" I woke up just enough to mumble, "Oh, sorry, bad dream," pat him on the head, and resumed snoring within 30 seconds. He still brings it up at least 3 times a year, and it has been 7 years. Story 83. Not a significant other, but my sister, who also has night terrors, woke me up while we were sharing a bed on vacation, whispering, "Sky bear, it's going to attack us. It's in the ceiling. Help." I panicked, turned on all the lights, and couldn't find anything unusual, but by that point she had fallen back asleep. The next morning she told me it had been the light on the fire alarm. Story 84. I was watching Black Mirror while my girlfriend slept next to me. I fell asleep while watching, and she woke up later and turned the television off. After she lay back down, I kept calling her a roach. She forgot it happened until I told her about the episode last night. She now understood why I called her a roach, and I was laughing out loud. Story 85. Not my significant other, but once my cousin said, "I'm Spider-Man and I'm going to kill your family." Like any reasonable person, I punched him to see if he was asleep. Story 86. Posted this before but bears repeating. 1. You shouldn't fuck. Mumbling. Huh? You shouldn't fuck. In the ass. Why would I want to fuck John Stamos in the ass? No, not John Stamos. You shouldn't fuck. In the ass. Who? Joe Namath. What? Do you even know who Joe Namath is? You said you were going to. 2. This next one requires a lot of explanation because I think it has the best payoff. Her mother is a lovely woman, but she swears a lot. One time she realized she'd made an error and said, "Oh cocksucker. Rat bastard. Good thing Duck Dynasty's on later or else I'd gut myself like a fucking fish." She really liked Duck Dynasty. I decided to use psychological warfare to make her swear less. I told everyone who would listen that her catchphrase was, "Oh peaches." And I even made up stories in which she said, "Oh peaches." It worked. She started saying, "Oh peaches." Whether or not she was habitually saying, "Oh peaches," became a point of contention in the family. My girlfriend denied that her mother was saying, "Oh peaches." If I told one of my "Oh peaches" stories, she'd immediately say, "Mom never said oh peaches." But her sister Michelle, with whom she was very close, said that indeed their mother was saying "oh peaches." My girlfriend's cousin visited us once and confirmed that her mother was saying "oh peaches." But a few months later her aunt came for a visit and denied the use of "oh peaches." I said, "Well, your son said that she says "oh peaches." "Yeah, well, he's a liar." Anyway, one day in bed my girlfriend says, "I murder people with this pillow." What? I smother people to death with my pillow. Why? I don't give a shit. I'm a killer. What would Michelle think about this? I don't care. She's a bitch. Don't say that about Michelle. She's a fucking bitch. And what would your mother say about all that? Oh peaches. 3. She says, Away sind re faith. Huh? Away in re safe. What? Hawaii? Do you want to go to Hawaii? No, it isn't very safe. Then I realized what she had been trying to say. Hawaii isn't very safe. I started laughing. She got really mad and said, You're so rude. Then she rolled to the other side of the bed and ripped the covers off me. Story 87. I wasn't talking in my sleep. I woke up and said, What the fuck was that loud enough to wake my wife, who started freaking out. I explained I had just woken from a dream in which I was watching an episode of Gilligan's Island where all the characters were in blackface and Marianne had said, Oh, Black Gilligan, which prompted my outburst. She had no memory of the conversation in the morning. Story 88. My ex-girlfriend said I was speaking what sounded like Latin in my sleep. I only speak English. Story 89. Not my significant other, but my father. He likes to doze off on the couch pretty often and talks in his sleep a lot. He is very affectionate when he sleep talks, unlike when he is awake. Dad, you gotta go get it. Me, get what? Dad, I'll get it. Me, all right, let me know when you have it. Dad, thanks for worrying about me. Me, do you have it yet? Dad, I do. Love you. Me, love you too. Dad, I'm so proud of you. Love you so much. Bye. Me, love you too. Bye. I think he thought he was having a phone call. He does the same thing for my mother, murmuring that she is beautiful and complimenting her hair. Story 90. Not my significant other, but relevant. While overseas on a trip with a group, one of us sat up in the middle of the night and aggressively blurted out a fully formed sentence in a language none of us knew. The person only spoke English. It woke and unnerved us all. In the morning, when we told them, they had no recollection of the event. Story 91. One night my daughter climbed into bed with me. She was not feeling well or had a bad dream. I do not remember. The next morning I asked how she had slept. She said she did not get any sleep because I had creeped her out. We were both on our sides facing each other. She heard me mumbling but could not make it out. She opened her eyes and asked, Mommy, what did you say? I slowly lifted my hand, pointed behind her and said, Shoo! Be quiet. It is right behind you. Then I went back to sleep. She was too afraid to turn or get out of bed, since whatever it was on her side of the room behind her. Creeped me out when she told me. Story 92. Mine is not creepy and my significant other has never talked in his sleep. He is just a real twitchy fucker when he is out cold. However, I apparently say a lot of weird things in my sleep. A few of the most recent ones are, the candles keep telling me to get an American dog. One night I shook my boyfriend awake and said, There is a spider on the roof. He looked at the ceiling and said there was not. I replied, There is a spider on the roof outside. Get it? I sat up quickly. My boyfriend went to hold my hand and I hissed, Shoo! You'll break the baby kitten. There are also times when I do not say anything and suddenly sit up and look around or reach for something that is not there. One time I sat up and started waving a corner of the duvet around for about 5 minutes before taking my boyfriend's hand and stroking his index finger while smirking at him. At least I keep things interesting, I guess. Story 93. My former partner once looked at me across the bed and said that she wanted me to drink a cup of her urine. Then she fell back asleep. Story 94. I don't normally talk in my sleep, but if someone asks me a question, I will answer. Unfortunately, my father discovered this because I do not lie while asleep. He used it to find out a lot of things while I was living with them. If he thought I was lying about something, he would come in that night and I would tell him the truth. I solved the problem by sleeping naked. It made him too uncomfortable to continue. Story 95. Apparently, I once farted myself awake, sat bolt upright, yelled, Where's Bulbasaur? And fell back to sleep. Story 96. My youngest brother used to have night terrors. One night he screamed, Get them off me, while biting his arms. It was alarming. Story 97. My sister told me I talk in my sleep. According to her, I often say they are here or they are outside. I also tend to mumble about tests. Story 98. I am the one who talks in my sleep. I have been known to laugh maniacally, repeat the number 7, and yell at students when I taught, to the detriment of my significant other's sleep. Story 99. My significant other has laughed in his sleep. It doesn't seem creepy, but when you're sleeping in a dark, quiet room and wake up to someone chuckling, creepy is an understatement. Story 100. Everybody in this thread should read Sleep Talkin' Man on Blogspot. It has not been updated in a long time, but the archives are hilarious. His wife records the strange things he says in his sleep and posts them. Story 101. I am a sleep talker. One night I apparently recited, word for word, the stock order I had made the previous day for the auto parts store I managed. My then wife recorded the last 50 or so item numbers and quantities I rattled off. She checked them against the stock order the next day. Spot on. Story 102. Oh, Walmart. Non-stop for half an hour. Story 103. Your nightmare is standing outside, laughing like a tree. It freaked me out more than it probably should have. Story 104. I regularly talk in my sleep. I am 58. One night my wife decided to set up a voice-activated recorder to capture my ramblings. In the morning we played the recording back. The only recording was a voice that could be described as a frightened small boy saying, "Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die." It creeped us both out. Another time we were both really tired and went to bed very early, about 9 p.m. At that time we lived in a small terraced house with a tiny backyard overlooked on all sides by other houses and a children's play area. About half an hour later, at 9:30 p.m., it was dark and I leapt out of bed, stark naked, and switched the overhead light on. I then went to the window and pulled the curtains back repeatedly, opening and closing them. My wife shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" I apparently said, "I have to signal to this helicopter so it can land in the garden." I am not sure how many small children I traumatized that night, and I am pretty sure no helicopter, even if it existed, could have landed in a yard 15 feet square. Story 105. We heard someone say we are not alone at 3 a.m. while camping in the 100-mile wilderness. Story 106. I'm the talker. My husband swears one day I sat up in bed as he left to use the bathroom, turned my head toward him with my eyes closed, and asked, "Which console do you want?" He said, "Xbox." I nodded sagely and said, it is tastier. Story 107. Sleeping on the demons. In the morning, he said he slept very peacefully and did not remember dreaming. Story 108. This is not really creepy. It is disappointing. I told this on another thread, but my ex sometimes talked in her sleep. One night I was up very late, hi, and just watching television when I heard her say very clearly to me, "Let us get McDonald's." I thought it was a great idea, so I got up and started getting dressed. After I finished I went to wake her, but she was asleep. I shook her a couple of times and said, "I am ready. Let us go." She finally woke and said, "What? No, it is late. Go to bed." I was disappointed because I really thought she wanted to go, and I was too high to drive, so I had to undress and go back to bed. Looking back, I should have known she was just talking in her sleep, but I was so high I did not want to accept that reality and chose to believe I was going to get some McDonald's. Story 109. The first time we slept together, I woke up to him looking at me. He said, "Hand me my spear. I will kill you now." Then he closed his eyes and lay back down. I thought about it for 5 minutes, decided I could take him, and went back to sleep. We dated for 6 years. Story 110. My husband frequently sees things in our room in his sleep that are not there. Giant spiders on the wall, snakes, squirrels. He wakes up and tells me to get out of bed so he can look for whatever he saw. One time he jumped out of bed and looked under the bed for snakes. My favorite was when he pointed to the corner of our bedroom and said there was a giant spider. He then ran out of the bedroom yelling, "I am out this bitch." He does not even talk like that normally. He has also punched me several times in the back because he was dreaming of fighting someone. Story 111. We're all going to die. Ah, what the fuck? Go away. You're pissing me off. All by yours truly. Story 112. Significant other said the monkey spoke Jesus words. I died laughing. Story 113. My wife is a college mathematics teacher. When she was pregnant, she would sit up and mutter about students and how disappointed she was in their work. One time she woke me up to tell me she really hated triangles. I just stared at her and said, "What?" She then lay back down and fell asleep. Story 114. My ex used to grind her teeth, talk, and move a lot while sleeping. One night she was making a strange noise in her throat. I, a light sleeper, woke up and decided to get up to go to the bathroom when she suddenly snapped her neck, turned to face me and said, "The witch has arrived." She turned away just as quickly and stopped moving. I spent the rest of the night lying awake, trying not to wet myself. Story 115. I'm not sure what a significant other is, but when I was little, my cousin, my little brother, and I were sleeping in the living room of our cabin with my other cousin and my older brother. Suddenly someone said something and another person responded in their sleep, which started an entire conversation between my cousin, my brother, and me while we were sleeping. One of them told me about it after waking us up because apparently we had all started arguing and yelling at each other. Story 116. My son used to sleepwalk when he was ill and had a fever. Once he marched around the house with a blank expression, repeatedly saying, "The numbers are stabbing me in the back." Another time he said, "This war is pointless, but we must fight and we must die." He was about 7 or 8 at the time. It really freaked me out. Story 117. Not my significant other, but when my best friend was visiting me a couple of years ago, she fell asleep a bit before I did. Her, "Don't hit me." Me, "I'm not hitting you." Her, "We have to get the contract because they have the knife." Me, "Who has the knife?" Her, "The dinosaur with the restraining order in the alley." Me, "Why does he have a restraining order?" Her, "Because I spilled spaghetti sauce on him during our date." Me, "What are you talking about?" The following morning, my alarm went off, so I tried to wake her. Half asleep, she said, "But we have to save the polar bears." Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.